to October 19th, 1781. It lasted 22 days in Yorktown, Virginia. There were three main reasons as to why the colonists did not want to take part in the Battle of Yorktown. First reason was some of them had family and they needed to support them. The second reason was the British had more weapons, and the third reason was some colonists were afraid of being in battle. Numbers were crucial to each side because the British was allowed only 8,000 troops, and the colonists were allowed to have as many troops as they needed.
The leader of the colonial army was George Washington. He was assisted by the French during the Battle of Yorktown, led by Lieutenant Jean-Baptiste Ponton, General de Rosenberger. The American army consisted of 8,800 American soldiers and 7,800 French soldiers. General George Washington, when hearing about Lieutenant General Lord Charles Cornwallis's army was encamped near Yorktown, Virginia, decided to move his army out of New York with the goal of crushing Cornwallis's isolated army. The French Navy assisted George Washington by preventing Cornwallis's army of being resupplied by sea. They surrounded the British army and laid siege on them. Cornwallis was told he would be given a reinforcement of 5,000 men, but that never came. Being outnumbered, he ordered the outer posts to be abandoned and retreat to the center. After lots of gunfire and the British army breaking out with smallpox in the camp, the American army, with the aid of their allies, won the battle that ended the war.
The British Army at Yorktown was led by Major General Lord Cornwallis and consisted of 8,000 British soldiers and assistance from the British Navy at Chesapeake Bay. Cornwallis needed a vantage point overlooking an anchorage for the Royal Navy in the Chesapeake Bay. He had to settle for Yorktown. He was relying on British reinforcements, but they never came. He had a fortified position at Yorktown, but the British Navy was forced to retreat, and Cornwallis had no choice but to surrender.
The battle ended with the Americans and French defeating the British army because the British were cornered by the two armies and were forced to surrender. The British lost because they were outnumbered, they weren't used to the terrain, and the British reinforcements never came. On September 28th, the French and Americans marched into Yorktown, forming a half circle around the entrenchments, and started to attack the British. The British were expecting reinforcements from New York to help fight, but the reinforcements never came. On October 9th, the Americans were close enough to start an artillery assault. On October 4th, the French and Americans gathered in front of their trenches, and the British position in Yorktown became formed. On October 23rd, Cornwallis tried to pass the guard stand and the light infantry across the York River to Gloucester, but was prevented by a storm. On October 19th, the British surrendered because their reinforcements were nowhere in sight, and they had low ammunition and food supplies.